There exist 87 badges in Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, with each costing a number of BP, which can be increased through leveling up. They grant various effects to Mario and his partners to give them a leg up in battle. A number of them are just flat out bad, but we only know bad badges exist because the good badges are so powerful, and this video will be about the best of the best. For the sake of giving this list more variety, I ended up dropping additions if I felt they were too similar to other picks in this video. If I didn't, there'd be a ton of samey entries with there being part of variants of certain badges. Now onto the actual list you clicked for. With how much I love the glazed Sleepy Stomp, seeing it only at the number 10 spot may serve to be a surprise. This badge sees Mario jump on a target with a chance of inflicting sleepiness for 5 turns. Sleep is, for lack of a better term, a status element that is slept on a lot for how powerful it is. On GameCube, it was decent given its early availability in the Pit of 100 Trials, as it allowed you to spend time focusing on damaging other more threatening enemies if it worked, but it was nothing too special because despite the lengthy turn duration, it was a status that could be cancelled by attacking the sleeping target, as any source of damage carried with it a 50% chance of waking the victim up early. Being unreliable to activate also made it largely outclassed by clock out once you got it. However, in the remake, enemies now have a 0% chance of waking up early when hit by any attack from either Mario or his partner outside of attack items or charge attacks, like the badge charge, which is, and I'm sorry to say, honestly pretty dumb because it completely misses the point of sleepiness as a status element. And it's only charge, not attack up like from Power Lift, not huge, not even Mega Rush, just charge. The funny thing is that Sleepy Sheep were actually nerfed to last for only 3 turns, as if that fixes the balancing issue of giving the player essentially honorary stopwatches fresh out the gate. And Sleepy Stomp wasn't nerfed alongside the item, making it essentially instant death on regular enemies as you take your time focusing on others before finishing up the sleeping one. And it's especially good at that for early Pit of 100 Trials challenges. And if it stopped there, this badge wouldn't be on this list. But then there's the fact that Sleepy Stomp can work against bosses, and not just a few of them either. I made a video on all of the enemies that can be put to sleep, and you can see for yourself just how many enemies are vulnerable to this one status, like the freaking Shadow Queen. Of all the badges on this list, this one may require the least amount of thought. You throw this move out, and if it doesn't work, no big deal. You're still doing decent damage, but if it works, then you basically just win. It's a baffling buff to this move, and that's putting it mildly. Your choices of actions in a battle are everything, and so you want to make every move you have count. It's for this reason that badges that grant free actions are so powerful, as it's like being able to act more than once per character. So you're likely going to be surprised to see that Quick Change is only 9th on my list. It allows partners to be swapped for another without using up your turn. Quick Change is an infamous badge for how its effect opens the way for so many powerful tactics, from general convenience for casual players to preserving beneficial statuses and indefinitely as a result of statuses not counting down if a partner is not actively participating in battle. It's also a very important badge for challenges like Pre-Hook Tilt Pit given its history of making keeping partners in peril easy, which back in the day when players weren't as good at the game, you'd want any advantage you could get. And with the downright destructive power partners like Goombella and Yoshi have in T2ID, this badge can make playing through this game exceptionally easy. So why is this badge only 9th on my list? Well, it costs 7 BP, the most of any badge in the whole game, which, yes, the effect is definitely strong, and odds are you'll have plenty of BP to equip it, but as a challenge runner, I've gained a lot of experience over the years learning to work with less. And Quick Change, costing as much as it does, makes it an unappealing choice when trying to make my strategies as efficient as possible. It was also actively nerfed in the remake by partners seeing their HP be maxed out, even if not active in battle when you level up, so it loses out on its synergy with Mega Rush P, as preserving peril for challenges like Pre-Hook Tilt Pit is no longer possible, and the added safety for Bonetail isn't a factor when you're not comfortable with super guarding her breath. I plan on elaborating on this badge in a future video where I talk about overrated T2ID badges, so be sure to subscribe if that interests you. Whenever you level up a stat, It's often a decision you're forced to commit to. There's no turning back, and won't be any turning back until after completing Chapter 5, where Chapter Repo can be accessed thanks to Bobbery. However, TTYD gives you a pair of badges in HP and FP+, which remove that need to commit entirely, and instead allow you to merely trade 3 of your BP to boost their respective stats max by 5. To be specific, however, it's FP+, that's seeing an entry on this list, but both of these badges are great. They just outclass 2/3 of your options for leveling up, as you can just don these badges and receive the exact same effect, meaning you're good to exclusively level up BP. This is massive, because BP is far and away the best thing to level up in general with all of the amazing badges you can use, and there's no shortage of strategies where your default 10 HP and 5 FP are the best stats you can have for bosses. Still, the flexibility of getting to choose what your stats are no matter where you are is amazing, as it makes these badges good whether or not they're equipped as long as you have them. Unless you're new to TTYD and reasonably wouldn't know how to navigate the bosses or how long you can last traveling the overworld, there's really no good reason not to use these badges unless you're doing an early pit challenge, where there are less options for viable badges and you don't need this much BP, so leveling up HP and FP makes more sense. And having a low max FP isn't even that big of a drawback thanks to items like gradual syrups, allowing FP regen to really pop off, and you can have as many as 2 active at a time. Easily one of the most underrated badges in the game. Determining the placement of this next badge is tricky, because while in most areas it's just not very good since it's largely outclassed by attacks from your partners, it's also a demon in some of the hardest challenges TTYD has to offer, thanks to its availability, FP cost, and power. I'm talking about Fire Drive, which sees Mario launch a fireball at all grounded enemies for 5 FP, which burns and pierces defense, but deals 1 less damage for every enemy hit in order. Outside of early pit challenges, this badge is outclassed by both Vivian's Fiery Jinx, which hits all enemies on screen for as much as 5 damage, in addition to burning, and Yoshi's Stampede, which can't burn, but hits all enemies on screen 6 separate times, and can just melt any regular enemy with some extra power backing it up. For this reason, Fire Drive is placed in a very favorable location, being on level 20 in the Pit of 100 Trials, as it is far and away the best badge you could ever ask for. Its damage starting at 5, and not being affected by the strength of Mario's hammer is actually a benefit to it, as the damage this badge can dish out compensates for Mario's severe lack of power exceptionally well. And with a variety of enemies that are made actually manageable, from wizards to dry bones to dark Koopa trolls, Fire Drive sees plenty of chances to dish out the pain. It helps that most of the most dangerous enemies are locked to the ground, and so the hammer's weakness of only being limited to grounded targets isn't really much of a factor, especially since Fire Drive is complemented so well by Sleepy Stomp. This is a prime example as to how important good availability really is. It's a good move with a super specific but highly valued niche, at least for me. As this list continues, you're going to find that a lot of badges are geared towards a specific playstyle, and a playstyle you're no doubt extremely familiar with if you've kept up with my challenge runs or events like Happy Strategy contests. Of course, I'm talking about danger badges. Back in the original Paper Mario, Last Stand was a badge renowned for being what made Mario an immovable object. It was nerfed in TTYD in some key areas, but it's still a badge worth acknowledging for this list. When Mario is in danger, Mario's damage taken becomes halved. If the damage would have fallen between 2 whole numbers, the damage rounds up. The value of this badge really isn't felt if you invested a lot of HP, because by then, you're trying to stay away from danger and relying on bigger healing items like Ultra Shrooms and the like. So for most of you, this will read as a strange choice, I'm sure, and it's the reason Last Stand P won't be here. But as far as defensive badges go, Last Stand really doesn't have any viable competition. In fact, it is the competition. It's a very handy badge for bosses provided you know what to look out for, and is a cheap, effective tool to enable low HP strategies to thrive, and makes playing with low HP much easier to handle, especially once you reach Chapter 3 and you have a second copy. Without Last Stand, low HP builds would lack the necessary backbone to be actually sustainable later in the game, as it can reduce damage drastically more effectively than other defensive badges, especially since it affects piercing attacks, which become much more common in Chapter 8. It may not be the juggernaut it was back in 64, but it's still a great badge. While these next few badges are more along the simpler side, I don't think that takes away from their usefulness. Being able to increase attack power carries a ton of value despite how steep the BP cost can be in the case of power pluses. Still, that is a genuine turnoff. Even more so in the remake, since the cost is harder to justify now that power lift is so much stronger. And something that P up, D down P doesn't have to worry about despite its own issues. If you were to ignore held badges and badge drops, the final one you'd find, assuming you collected every badge as soon as possible, is P up, D down P. Gold medal what? It costs 2 BP and increases both partner attack and damage taken by 1. Despite its availability, it's an excellent badge once you do get it. Partners typically have plenty of HP as is when ultra ranked, and so increasing the damage they take is hardly something ever felt. And with how damage scales across multiple hits, you rarely ever get only 1 extra damage out of extra attack power anyway. Even with it being the last badge you'll find for the main story, there's still the Pit of 100 trials available for you to challenge, which will see P if they don't peak get plenty of use. And fights there typically will be quick, so the drawback of taking extra damage is often something you'll never even have to worry about. May only really be good for pounding out numbers, but it's hard to find another badge that gives the same amount of value as this one does. And then there's Jumpman. This badge increases jump attack power by 1 in exchange for being unable to select hammer moves. It's essentially a cheaper power plus that you get super early in the game. You'd think this allowing your hammer would serve to hurt this badge, but it really doesn't, since no bosses in this game are actually protected from being jumped on. And since the damage added is per jump, you're effectively seeing an additional +2 damage as opposed to Hammerman's +1, making the value better. It's really only a badge good for padding numbers out for bosses, but it's fairly good at it. And with the options for statuses jump badges offer like Sleepy Stomp and Soft Stomp, alongside the heavier hitters being multi-bounce and power bounce, there's really no good reason not to use this badge during a bigger fight. Plus, by the time you get it, you have Earth Tremor, which helps a lot with covering weaker matchups your jump can't handle. And if you're not fond of burning SP and regular enemies all the time, you have your partners like Coops to help you out, and nothing really stops you from supplementing your offense with items. And even this weakness is eliminated once you have Vivian, where Spike Shield becomes available, and with Ice Power not much farther away, it becomes open season. Jumpman is truly a very privileged badge in that respect. It's as if the game was designed to make it look as good as possible. All I'm saying is, there's a reason that having Hammerman on all games is considered a challenge, while Jumpman isn't. There's actually no badge here. I just want to thank my channel members for supporting the channel, namely Nintendo 60Jorts, MB Switchy, and Quay13. To everyone else, if you'd like to support the channel, you can either keep watching or become a channel member by clicking the join button below. Much love. Probably the best badges to enable the most powerful TC rating tactic on a dime are the double dip badges. We'll be focusing on Mario's copy for this list, but both badges in my opinion are exceptional. For 4 FP, these enable the use of 2 items in 1 turn, and if you have 2 copies of either variant, you can use 3 items in 1 turn for 8 FP. In a lot of ways, this badge is similar to Quick Change, since it affords extra actions in a single turn. The difference being that double dip actually costs FP, and ironically, it's the fact they cost FP that makes these badges so good. Remember back to what I said about FP Plus and how the option to have more is nice, but there are plenty of ways to win with your default 5 max? Yeah, double dip is a massive reason as to why. You can pair this badge with something like Point Swap and instantly drop either Mario or his partner to only 1 HP left, activating your low HP badges instantly. And since you can use 2 items, there is nothing stopping you from tacking on something like a Power Punch, a Gradual Syrup, or even a Boost Sheet if it helps you do more damage later or protects you from being KO'd yourself, making this one of the most ripe badges for abuse and an incredibly safe option if you just wanted to plow through the later bosses in the game. Debatably, Mario's copy is better since you can slam bosses hard and for no additional FP, with Yoshi helping you alongside the newly buffed Power Lift, but both are strong, and it really is just up to you how you want to bludgeon what poor boss stands in your way. And this is only one example of what these badges can do. Thanks to their availability in the Pit of 100 trials, they're also a decent asset for early, more restrictive pit challenges if you're able to find Charlie 10, though to be honest, it isn't much of a factor for this list, mostly because that's more so a double dip P advantage. Good old Power Bounce. It costs 3 FP and allows Mario to continuously jump on a single target until you either miss an action command or the game stops you early. This move was nerfed in the remake to make the 4th bounce frame perfect, much to the chagrin of many players who believe the move to no longer be worth using. It's a sentiment I don't agree with, but it is well understood that making Power Bounce harder to actually reap its full reward is going to turn some people off. But I don't think this actually ruins the badge. If anything, I think it serves more as a nerf to all or nothing, since now in addition to being available so late, you're risking only 3 damaging bounces as opposed to 4. Also, charge is worse, as the slow buildup of power means you'd have to survive for more turns to see an equal payout of what Power Bounce was capable of on GameCube. But with 4 reliable hits, Power Bounce is still capable of massive damage between Power Lift, Jumpman, and the Rush badges. 4 hits is also not far from the cap you typically can expect from bosses, as most stop you early at 6 bounces or even 5 in the case of the Shadow Queen and Bone Tail. And the badge can still hit the necessary damage benchmarks to KO even Chapter 8 bosses in 1 or 2 uses of the move. The nerf really only hurts this badge when you're using it to deal damage when your starting power is low, in which case you are always better off using Spin Jump anyway. And it isn't like it's impossible to master the timing of the 4th bounce when using visual cues, which people like Cappy have put to good use in making Power Bounce still able to rival its GameCube counterpart. My advice? This badge doesn't really deserve to be written off. It's still great. We finally reached those badges. The badges that are so good, roughly half of this list wouldn't exist if I didn't force myself to pick only one of the 4. Yes, it's time to talk about the Rush badges. At the bottom of the totem pole, both variants of Power Rush are amazing for the extra damage they afford, as +2 damage is a lot. Even if you're not farming copies of the Pianta Parlor, having just one is insanely useful, as they complement the true heavy hitters all the more thanks to being able to stack their effects alongside them. Higher up is Mario's copy of Mega Rush, which in my opinion is the most underrated badge in the game, since it's not only easy to set him into peril when his HP is so flexible, but it's a critical badge to master to make Power Bounce actually worth anything, as +5 damage is downright otherworldly no matter what the risk is, let alone only requiring good game sense to consistently reap its reward. You don't even need to be good at Super Guarding to get good use out of it. In fact, Super Guards are actually suboptimal if you know your way around bosses. Still, it's none of those 3 badges that's seeing the #1 spot. No, the best badge in all of TTYD is, bar none, Mega Rush P. It costs only 1 BP, and it increases partner attack by +5 at peril, or they have 1 HP left. What Mega Rush P allows to be done feels like it should be downright illegal. With proper setup, bosses are made to just melt, and can be dominated in as few as 2, 3, maybe 4 turns, and it leads to Goombella and Yoshi just being able to overwhelm basically anything and everything. Even with Multi-Bonk going the way of Power Bounce and being nerfed, Yoshi's Ground Pound and Stampede were still untouched and are as lethal as ever, so no matter which you choose, you have the means to drop any boss like it's hot. After all, you're likely running it alongside Power Rush P, and both badges stack, so you're really looking at a +7 attack bonus for a measly 2 BP. And the destructive potential is only made more prominent once you have access to Power Lift, where your damage becomes downright calamitous. It isn't even like this badge is only good for bosses. In the Pit of 100 Trials, Koops is renowned for being an incredible sweeper when aided by Mega Rush P, and even before getting your first Crystal Star, he's able to clear waves of enemies with Power Shell, a tactic that's often preferable to Fire Drive, outside of challenges that explicitly have to disallow Mega Rush P because the badge is just that strong that not allowing it automatically makes the game notably harder. Let's also keep in mind that unlike Mario, who if he gets knocked out and you have no life streams remaining, it's game over, Mario can keep on fighting even after his partner has fainted. So it's much less risky to put your partners in danger, especially since ending a fight or running away after your partner is down sees them be revived after the battle is over with 1 HP, immediately setting them into peril. Even now, where leveling up maxes out HP in all of your partners, there's always a way to see partners be brought back into peril if you're relying on it, and it's always worth it to do. Mega Rush P is the ultimate testament to a high-risk, high-reward badge that only becomes better when you, the player, become better at the game, where the risk becomes smaller as you learn how to really push back. And unlike Danger Mario, I find it actually fun to use, because it demands that you know how bosses function provided you don't go the way of double dipping. Not only is it in my opinion the best badge, it's also my favorite. Long live Mega Rush P, the one true king. Seeing that you watched this whole video, go watch my list on the 10 worst badges in TTYD. I find that badges are fun to talk about, so I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I'll see you later.